It's not a bird, it's not a plane, it's Superhero Slate. It's a weekly podcast where we talk about everything that's great. Like movies, TV, superheroes. It's Superhero Slate. Oh, yeah.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to Superhero Slate, the show where we run down the latest superhero entertainment news.
We love TV, movies, and superheroes, so let's talk it all out.
My name is Chris.
And my name is Mike.
And that was a bad time to take a drink. I realized this after the fact. But this week, we have some Superman news from CCXP, previously known as Comic-Con Brazil. An Invincible Season 3 trailer, Mike. I don't know if you caught up with Season 2 yet on that?
Yeah, I'm all caught up with the show.
Yeah, people will be happy. The Season 3 is coming out relatively soon. We'll talk about that more later. And we both have seen Creature Commandos, so we're gonna do I guess I could bump it to the end. I had it in the middle here. We're gonna bump Creature Commandos to the end of the show, but we're gonna do a full review on the first two episodes, out the gate. So that is the show, Mike. And you actually, so people are like, oh, well, what about the other show, Skeleton Crew? We've not had a chance here in my house to watch Skeleton Crew. With it being, obviously like 17 degrees most of the week here. It's been kind of rough. My wife's also a teacher, so she's dealing with sick kids. Like 6 of them were out on Friday. And I'm like, you can just keep your disease somewhere else while I don't get sick, right? Because nothing's worse, Mike, than having 2 sick people in the house at the same time. With that, but you were able to watch Star Wars Skeleton Crew this week, and I'm interested in your opinion because I feel like you forgot it was coming out most of the time we kept talking about it.
Yeah, and I saw the hype online because I caught it like the day after it aired, or at least the very first episode. So I'll keep it spoiler free for you, Chris, since you haven't had a chance to see it yet. It's definitely one of those things where you have to kind of watch both episodes to get a full idea of what the show is going to be. The first episode is a little slow, a little soft, a lot of world building, at least on the specific world that you start off out on. And it's very kid heavy, so it was not the most favorite thing of my wife, who it has a very low tolerance for child actors. But once the second episode kicks up and everyone's kind of feeling a little bit more like comfortable in their costumes and sets and everything, I start to enjoy it a lot more. So the writing's still on the wall. I feel like anytime I watch a Star Wars show now, unless it's like The Mandalorian, at least I kind of know it's kind of proven itself slightly. I mean, not to mention the last season, but it was satisfactory so far. Though I don't know, Chris, if you've ever noticed this. I don't know if there's like some sort of mantra written on the wall in the writer's room for every Star Wars show, but I hate the way every episode ends on a Star Wars TV show. Like I feel like they think they're ending their show on a cliffhanger when really it just feels like they're ending every episode almost like on like an act break or a commercial break in a way. So it's like I never feel like I've watched a satisfying episode of television. It feels like I've just been like somebody just hit pause and said come back in a week. And I've noticed that with a lot of other Star Wars TV shows. And I want to know if anyone else feels this way out there. Like if you want to think of like a cliffhanger, which it's kind of pointless in a way because it's Netflix and you can binge it all mostly unless they break it into chunks. But Stranger Things has always been really, really good at leaving their episodes on like cliffhangers, in my opinion. It's like, oh yeah, I can't wait. Oh, I'm so excited for next week. Whoa, what's gonna happen?
I think
I just don't know if anyone else has experienced that.
Well, I think that goes to tell you one thing, and I think this is something I would even say you kind of feel in the Marvel shows a little bit previously. Disney, but like Star Wars is not set up with a television crew, right? They're not making TV like TV is made. The Duffer Brothers worked in television before they went and did Stranger Things, so they know how television works, right? That's how you write the episodes. You're not writing a long 8-hour movie. I mean, you kind of are, but like you write each episode as television things. And Star Wars, Marvel has realized their wrongs, and we are going to see the first real test of that come Daredevil, right? In March or April, with their new setup. So I think Star Wars has not had a chance to adapt to a television studio model for their shows yet, right? Short of, I would say, Dave Filoni's work, I guess, in the Clone Wars a little bit, but animation's a little different. 22-minute episodes and whatnot. But I think the Mandalorian. I remember the first episode of the Mandalorian when you brought up like that one felt kind of like it had a cliffhanger, right, where you meet the child for the first time. Like at the end of it, you're like, oh, what is this? What is the mystery?
And that was also like. And that's like an iconic shot too,
yeah.
where you just see the little hand sticking up from the floating bassinet.
Yeah. So I think Star Wars, from their live action standpoint, has not adopted the TV, I guess, model, the writing rooms, the production, the storytelling yet. But I would say, if I was a betting man, Mike, I would say the writing is on the wall for Star Wars to. If they're going to keep making shows like this, to adapt to that. Otherwise, they're probably not going to ever get above, as the kids would say today, mid in their shows, right? at the end of the day. With it, I mean, that's just my take on it. I think that's what you hit the nail on the head, right? Like, you brought Stranger Things. Well, it was written by TV people. Star Wars, not written by TV, not written and done by TV people, done by a film studio at the end of the day. So, prominently a film studio. So, I think it's so I'm excited to watch it. Like I said, I've seen everything, and these come out on Monday nights, I believe. It came out last Monday night. As I was looking, I was like, oh, Monday night it's 9. So hopefully, maybe tonight I can after we get done recording here and edit this, I can pop the first episode on, maybe while we're eating dinner along the way. We got to do couch this summer, and like a sectional living room, and it's like kind of like a cream white color, and my entire. I'm still steadfast. I'm like, I can't eat dinner on this white couch, Mike. I'm like, I can't eat dinner and watch television on the same, because I will spill something on this couch, and I'm like, I don't want to do that yet. So maybe give it a couple weeks, and it'll break it in for that. But yeah. So you would recommend, right now people watch both episodes that are out to see if they're gonna dive into the rest of it.
Yeah, give it a shot. It's different enough to where if maybe you didn't like the last Star Wars thing, maybe this will pique your interest.
Awesome. Well, let's get into the news. We were talking earlier. We've got some topics to go over, but the first one up, Mike, is Invincible season 3. This was leaked earlier in the week and then officially dropped, I think, on Saturday from Amazon Prime. I believe maybe even at CCXP. I don't want to say that and get it wrong, but the season 3 trailer for this is coming out. It's coming in February 2025 on Amazon Prime and will be released weekly after the initial 3-episode launch drop. So I don't know if I think they were released weekly before, right? Last season, because they had a break in the middle of it as well. So, but for people who may not have read the books, this is a very important turning point in the Invincible comic series. Mike, you might have picked up from the trailer, he gets a different suit. He becomes like the dark black and blue look that people may remember probably more from the later Invincible series, comic book wise.
Yeah, this show is really rounded out amazingly well. There's a lot of different characters and storylines. I feel like the stories are taken very thoughtfully and seriously. And, who knows? You give the credit to, was it Robert Kirkman, right?
That's correct, yeah.
Writing writing a good story to begin with. But they're just executing it really, really well. And I'm glad to see that it's not going to be broken into pieces this season. You'll just be able to watch it straight through, week by week. So I'm excited.
Yeah, and it feels like we talk about animation. They usually make there was the first season that they made it came out, and there was like a long wait for season 2. They even poked fun of it right along the way, and I think they did season 2 and 3 back to back. So my assumption is they're probably going to be trying to get into a cadence of doing these yearly to wrap out the whole story, because Invincible as a comic series is done, so they know where the story kind of starts and goes throughout this. One of the other introductions into this, Mike, and this might be a spoiler for people who don't know, but it is in the trailer. Coming up is the it's the mini Omni-Man, if you will, Omni-Man, Omni-Boy, right? And he's a little purple kid being raised. So for those who might know, he is the younger half brother of Mark Grayson, right? That's his name, I believe. So it's going to be interesting seeing this dynamic of him becoming, invincible as a whole, and also has like a super powered younger brother to watch along the way with this. So I'm excited. I'm self-admittedly, I've read the comic books. I've not really watch the show, but this has kind of given me like I guess that a little injection to watch the show. I'm like, oh, we're getting to the good stuff, the stuff I remember reading more because it was later in the series. So I'm like, oh, this might give me an injection to go through and get through seasons 1 and 2 along the way for that. But yeah, that link is in the show notes if people want to check it out. Mike, anything else on Invincible? It seems to be a pretty big pop. I know that they're a live action movie. Do you think they're still going to come out with the live action movie after the animated stuff gets done?
I mean, weirdly, I kind of hope so. Mm-hmm. Just I'd like to see this on the big screen in some aspects.
My question would be, because this is going to be a multi-season show, like, what do you put in the movie? Is it like the first season? Like, how do you condense such a long, telling story into just like, we're going to watch it in like 2 hours, right? Like, do they do multiple, movies? Do they try to split it up in like each season is a different movie kind of thing, or how? What I mean, I don't know. I mean, if you had any ideas, I was going to ask you. You don't have to have any ideas right now, but I'm like, this is such a long story. I don't think one movie is going to tell the whole story. So I hope that first movie does well. So they're like, yeah, we'll kick off with the second one, right?
Well, at least if I recall, in the first season of Invincible, there's a lot of just like watching Invincible kind of cut his teeth, and kind of figure out his powers and how to be a superhero. Like, you can condense probably at least 5 episodes down to a montage, in a way. Yeah. Not saying those episodes aren't worthwhile, but montages will get you pretty far.
Yeah, absolutely. And it really is, the main quote unquote villain of the first season is coming to find that his dad is the bad guy really at the end of the day. So maybe they do the first season and knock that out. Moving on to other shows. This is DC news. I don't know if you know this, but Superman and Lois it's ended its show. The series concluded with its 4th season this week. They did know they were going into the 4th season. I think it's like 10 episodes. It's a very abbreviated season, but they did know it was the end, so it actually has a definitive written end. And I think it's making it the first Superman series to tell a complete story. And I say its own complete story in live action. So they were able to do, we met Superman actually in Supergirl a long time ago, and then he got his own show after Crisis of Infinite Earths, and they wrapped up with a season series finale here. So I think that's pretty cool. I've never watched the show, but I did watch a lot of clips from this last season because it was a very much at the end, I think, of season 3. It was Superman versus Doomsday, and they had like a live action Doomsday. It looked really comic accurate. A lot of people were happy with that. Have you followed any of this news, or I don't think you've watched any of the show yourself, but
no, whenever the show premieres or has a season finale, it would briefly crop up in my feeds. So that's kind of how I've caught up with the show. So since the show's ending, I've seen a lot more clips. Like, I've already seen the last couple I've seen like the last couple scenes already, just people reacting to it, putting it up online. So I'm excited. I'm glad for people that got to watch this show and have like a nice round ending to it. That's really, really nice.
Yeah.
And it's also weird. This is like officially the end of the Arrowverse that started a dozen years ago. I looked it up while we were chatting. Yeah. Which is kind of crazy that it had this long tail that lasted this long.
Yeah, I mean, it was like, what, 10 or 11 shows spun out of Arrow to create the Arrowverse, the CW's shows along the way. Some are, obviously Arrow, The Flash, Supergirl, Superman Lois, Black Lightning had some pretty good runs. But then there's like Naomi, I think was one of them they tried to do, who was like a real person living in there and like in the superhero world, stuff like that. So it had a lot of spinoffs and did really well. But yeah, that's what I'm going to say. This is also the end of the CW/Arrowverse. And that's just wild to think about, right? That Greg Berlanti's little project about an archer has come to an end on it like this. So I'm looking forward to a couple months people doing the Arrowverse box sets, like get the entire Arrowverse complete box set of every show kind of thing. So we'll see if they come up with that along the way. Moving on into regular Superman. This is DCU Superman. CCXP is this week. So I think James Gunn, I don't know if he's there or if he's not there, but There were some reports that Superman the movie is currently undergoing reshoots. Well, it's very early for a movie to undergo proper reshoots. So James Gunn is on what's his Threads, his favorite social media platform, as I always say, where he's confirmed that no, these aren't really reshoots; they're just pickups and other non-story beats that they're filming. So that's
very normal movie stuff.
Yeah,
I feel like we have this conversation on the show all the time where the internet flares up like a bad infection when it hears reshoots, but then it's like, no, these are the normal scheduled ones.
Right.
This isn't like a Brave New World type of deal.
Right. Yeah. Well, exactly. And even in Brave New World, that's still not bad news, because guess what? That means the studio's trying to make things better rather than like, we'll just fix it all in CGI, use what bad things we have. Right. Reshoots means they're actively trying to do stuff. And again, pickup shots like, close-ups, city shots, establishing shots, like, I guess if it's attached to such a high-profile project as Superman, right? Like, we always talk about how much weight is literally on this movie to kick off, Warner Brothers and DCU's, in 2025. Like, of course, it's gonna be a spin to where it sounds bad or something like that. But absolutely normal stuff. They probably have just wrapped over the summer. They've still got until July to do stuff, so we'll probably hear a couple more things as they go back and do some more shots. But I've got some links in the shows for people who are interested from CCXP. They actually had a merch shop down there with official merchandise. And some of the first Superman official merchandise we have here shows a silhouette of Superman flying. So it looks like he's doing the traditional comic book pose, Mike. One arm forward, other arm back, kind of like a flying punch, if you will, on the mug here. And it uses, and we're going to talk about this color. Obviously, Superman's red, yellow, and occasional blue, but they're using this blue to dark blue to light blue gradient with the Superman S on this mug as well, right, for the silhouette. And we're going to talk about more of that in a second. So if you want to check out some sweet drinkware, click on our first show note. But there are other shirts and pins merchandise showcasing what appears to be the new Superman S in a Superman the Christopher Reeve Superman like extruded style with it's like a chrome finish to it. Mike, is that how you would describe this? A little bit.
Yeah, I think that's fair.
Looks like a metal stamp. Yeah.
I'm looking at the next link as well, because they show off enamel pins, and that logo is kind of also extruded as well as a pin.
It doesn't look well as a pin, does it? With that back, like how it's kind of like offset a little bit. I'm like, oh, the other ones are much cleaner than this weird, like, empty space kind of logo where it's supposed to have like a 3D effect. Now, my question is, I think it's an homage to the original Superman, right? New beginnings, new Superman. James Gunn's obviously very inspired by the older stuff, probably more than the newer Supermans. But this really interesting to pull this blue gradient logo forward with this style whenever we've not seen it on anything. So I'm interested to see if it comes into play in the movies, or if it's just more of a, hey, if you're not down with the yellow and red wearing the shield chest, we've got something a little more not casual, what's the word I'm looking for, a little more low-key wear for people along the way. I expect to see this more coming up in Walmarts, in your local Walmart section, Mike, when you go get your graphic tees along the way. So check out those notes here. Mike, anything else on that? Because the next topic is just funny to me. And I think you might get a kick out of it.
Let's breeze on through this insanity here.
I'm going to be honest. Before I thought Comic-Con CCXP Comic-Con Brazil would give me more news, and I was like very excited to wait till Sunday to do the show notes. And literally nothing's come out of it yet here at 5:30 p.m. Eastern time. So I'm like, well, I guess this was just a very hyped event that we didn't see much of. So maybe they'll have more on Monday or something like that. But we will definitely report back to that next week. But moving on, the movie that just won't die, just Suicide Squad, not the Suicide Squad, from David Ayer. He is out here campaigning for his Ayer cut to be released from Warner Brothers. He has a Twitter thread, or I guess X thread now, where he's got like, it looks like a fan poster. He made, you know, Suicide Squad, David Ayer Suicide Squad, the Ayer cut, and with like a fake date and everything like that. And he's like, I hope my real film can be shared one day. I appreciate the continued support and interest. He's not being malicious or aggressive, but I think, you know, he's just like, you know, if you don't like what you saw the first time, maybe you'll like my version, kind of thing.
Dude, you gotta move on. I mean, I am a creative working professional, nowhere near the level of directing feature films, but I've worked on creative projects in the past where, you know, you get notes back, you hand it off to somebody else, and it gets chopped up and changed totally different. I mean, just move on.
Mm-hmm.
Just let it go by. And also, like, it's hilarious that the date at the bottom is like the worst Photoshop thing I've ever seen.
Oh, yeah.
It's like, looks like somebody like a clipping from like a magazine to put that 5 after the 2024.
Yeah. So I was like, well, what's he been doing lately? Because he's getting headlines out of this. I'll be honest with him. You know, the Hollywood Reporter, Variety, they're all covering this quote unquote news. So anytime he posts something, he's getting some coverage. So good for him. But I did notice, you know, he hasn't done a lot of work since Suicide Squad. He did Netflix's Bright, otherwise known as Orc Cop, if you remember, with Will Smith, and he had to work with that. He also did a movie in 2020, or came out in 2020, called The Tax Collector, which I didn't watch, but I've heard a lot of people talk about his movie The Beekeeper this year that he directed. Have you caught that yet with Jason Statham?
I've heard of its meme status, and so bad it's good.
Yeah, I've heard people watch it, and they're actually, you know, it's not really about a beekeeper, it's more about an assassin. So he's got a movie coming up next year called Levin's Trade, which also stars Jason Statham. So it sounds like he's got something going on there, but he is getting work. But my assumption is here, why they haven't released this yet, Mike, is there's probably some, like, if we put this on streaming, if we put this anywhere someone can watch it, we're gonna have to pay a lot more rights or pay people out. And Warner Brothers right now, David Zaslav, completely normal man, right? Just an average guy, not some, you know, CEO who, you know, is taking everything. Warner Brothers, they're really cutting back a lot of the shows on stream because they don't want to pay dividends, residuals, right? They're like, we're gonna take down Cartoon Network's website so we don't have to pay people to watch things for free, kind of thing. So it is, my guess is they're probably not doing it. Number one, they don't care, but number two, if they put it out there, they're gonna have to pay a lot more people residuals that they just don't want to do at the end of the day. So I would love to see, hopefully, Mike, I'm gonna be selfish here and say it leaks on the internet one day, that we can just watch it and not have to do anything with it. But I would love to just kind of see it, to see, is it that different? Because I, you know, remember that and having a bad taste in my mouth. So maybe we could get it out one day, get the curiosity out. Shifting gears over to Marvel, Daredevil, Wilson Bethel, the actor who played Bullseye, has confirmed that the upcoming Daredevil show is set 5 years after the events of Daredevil season 3, which was on Netflix. And he quotes, and I quote, "These characters who have all lived 5 years of life and all of the twists and turns that you take in the meantime." So it means, like, we're not going to be picking up from them. You know, things will have probably changed status quo wise, jobs, life, relationships, whatever, in 5 years for all the characters, before we catch up with them. I mean, we'll probably get that through like flashbacks or something, but it is good to know, like, it's not just picking up 5 minutes after, you know, season 3 of Daredevil along the way.
Yeah, and I feel like that's a storytelling trope I've seen before that I'm okay with. I can't think of any examples off the top of my head, but I've seen it before, even without this complicated scenario of a Netflix show ending and then Disney picking it back up years later. But you'll just be watching like any normal TV show that you've seen before, and they might just feel like, oh, let's do a time jump in between seasons, and then like the story is set up where, oh, we gotta roll back and see what we've missed over the last couple of years with these characters. Oh yeah, the more humorous one, the last season of Parks and Rec, they did a time jump in between the second to last season and last season. That was pretty funny. So yeah, I'm fine with this. It'll be fun to see how we dive back into Daredevil's Hell's Kitchen.
Yeah, I think, is it the show Yellow Jackets is doing like a time jump as well? Even though I know there's time jumps in the show, but like they're like kind of jumping forward a little bit. along the way.
Theirs is more like from the callback to Arrow, like Arrow's show where they constantly jump back from past to present.
Well, I also think they're doing that again in the next season. Like they're kind of moving forward a little bit. Arrested Development. Remember when Arrested Development got canceled on Fox and got picked up by Netflix? They did that time jump as well. Can't say it was the best thing in the world, but it did. it did happen along the way. So yeah, hopefully it's good. And with the MCU, I'm curious. We were all curious when we watched the Netflix shows. Will they address the MCU proper? They did not. Other than what the Thanos event right at the beginning, or not Thanos, the Loki, the Battle of New York is what they kept calling it. So I'm interested to see if this 5 years references the blip at all. Right from Endgame, Infinity War. So we'll see if they pull that in. If not, I don't care. It doesn't bother me. It has been 5 years since we returned from the blip, Mike. If you can believe that, almost coming up on 6 years. So we've passed enough time. We don't need to go back to it. A little trailer, a little short trailer. Season 3 of What If is coming up later this month here in just a couple of weeks, right? 2 weeks from today, actually, and it'll debut on Disney Plus. It'll be daily through the rest of the things. So it's the final season, so final episodes, and this, the season 3, this trailer, if you will, kind of shows some highlights, some different spots from seasons 1 and 2, and says you should probably rewatch 1 and 2 before you get into 3. I don't think I will, but it is fun. And then we get some other blips kind of along the way to see some of these new characters teaming up and kind of like what we get to see kind of going forward, including obviously at the end of it, one of the most exciting things, Storm wielding Mjolnir, Mysterio returning from Spider-Man No Way Home. No, Far From Home. Oh, God, those are hard to remember. And the Watcher with some different Celestials than we've seen before that are kind of like glowing in the dark. So yeah, I'm excited to return to this and glad it knows that it is getting, like we talked about with Superman and Lois, a definitive ending where they know where they're writing towards it. It's not going to get canceled and just kind of float. But hopefully we get to see maybe some of these characters, some of these new creations come into life into the, Doomsday and Secret Wars movies coming up too, right? So hopefully they pay off.
Yeah, and who doesn't want to see Paul Rudd's head back in a jar again?
Back in the jar. Was that Marvel Zombies? All right, is that?
Yeah. So I'm curious how it's ending up in the What If line, since Zombies got its own thing. So that'll be a fun thing to find out.
Yeah, I'm excited about this mech episode. Like, I don't know, why do they build the mech suits? Which ones are transforming? What toys can I buy in 6 months, Mike? Whatever, I can transform these little Marvel mechs into like a bigger one. Kind of along the way, but I'm this is like a low stakes show. I can binge it. Last year when it came out at Christmas, I think I skipped a day or two and then just watched them. So excited to dive into it and see if it all pays off in the end. Mike, you actually this was big enough to hit your feed. Marvel Rivals launched this week. We talked about last week. The video game system on our video game on systems on Friday and Thursday or Friday, and it launched with MCU inspired skins in the store, so they knew the audience, they want to buy your Loki from Loki season 2, or your Groot from Guardians of the Galaxy 3, Adam Warlock from Guardians 3, stuff like that. And you actually shared over a video sharing the MVP animation, so if you're the best player in the game, you get an animation at the end of the game, that are actually inspired / almost replicas of scenes from the movies.
Yeah, it was pretty cool. Marvel Rivals, I think, is a fun art style. We talked about it a little bit on the show last week, but you and friend of the show, Quentin Parker, have been playing, and you guys seem to be having a fun time. You shared your score in one match, and you were boasting, I believe, if I remember correctly.
Yeah, it's fun. It's just fun. First match, it's an online game similar to Overwatch. You either go to a point, capture the point the longest, or you're pushing / defending a vehicle that moves through. So the longer you're on the vehicle, it moves to the end, and when you're at the end, you win. Or if you defend it, you try to get people to not push it. They have maps, a mix of Asgard and Yggdrasil, Ixgard. They have a Clintar, a few maps, so you're fighting on the symbiote home planets. There's a Hydra world, like an alternate universe where Hydra is essentially making super soldiers, and they have like their own like base called Hell's Heaven. And there's a couple Black Panther maps as well. Like a space Black Panthers, which was from the comic book. So they've got a lot of variety. It's a free game. It has 33 playable characters. I have seen, and these are rumored leaks, but taken from it that one of the upcoming characters is you actually get to play as Ultron, and his ability is to call in Ultron drones to help heal and like guard people. So like you're more of a support Ultron character, which I think would be interesting. And obviously with the upcoming Fantastic Four next year, Mr. Fantastic is coming to the game, and I would love to see some of his stretchy abilities and see what he plays as well. But again, absolutely free game. That's where you're gonna get my money, Mike, is in a free game. I'll definitely pay $0 to be playing, and it's Marvel. It's fun. It's like I said, it's very teamwork, but there are times like there are games I've been like so frustrated. It's just been definitely a give and take. Not all of them are winners with that along the way. And I know, like, again, I think I even said this, I'm like, this is not a Mike coded game. This is a very, very high energy, very competitive game, but hopefully it being free, if you get a second to play it, I would love your opinions on seeing the game and like how, again, like I said, there's custom interactions, and when you're in the waiting lobby before you can go into that and play the match, you're all staying in a room. Like depending on who you have characters, they will all have different conversations. So I play Penny Parker, who was Spider from Across the Spider-Verse. She'll have different conversations with Black Widow, who thinks in her world Black Widow was a myth, and she's like, oh, if you're out here, that means things are bad, kind of thing. So it's really fun to just the detail kind of put into it. It feels like a game made by the fans rather than like a corporate like kind of shove down your throat thing along the way. That's the superhero news. We're gonna get into 28 years later. Mike, have you thought about 28 days later or any of those 28 weeks later since they came out in like the early 2000s?
I watched them both for the first time during the pandemic, if I recall correctly, which is
okay.
I think funny timing. I wonder what inspired watching those. And
yeah,
they were fun. I mean, just good zombie stuff. I think they're a little overhyped for what they are. I'm not saying they're bad, but but it's exciting. It's satisfying when like Hollywood kind of lets the analytical, intrusive part of your brain win. Like, well, we did 28 weeks and 28 days. Like, we got to do 28 years, right? It's like, yes, please. No, was it 28 weeks or 28 months? Sorry,
28 days later than 28 weeks later. They skip months, so they did not do months. And then, people are like, oh, you should have done 28 months later. Like, well, it's been 20 plus years, so we're a little closer to 20 years later. But so we got some first teaser footage. So I would say, the first movie, Danny Boyle, and I believe it's one of the first big roles for Cillian Murphy, right? Who is huge right now, and I'd be interested if they bring him back. But he was not involved in and Alex Garland wrote. They were not involved. I think they were executive producers on the second one, 28 weeks later, which wasn't good. But it was like one of the first movies that inspired, like, there's the rage virus. They're fast zombies, right? They're not the slow shambling ones. They're not really. The dead aren't really coming back to life. They're a little different with the rage virus, right? You never know. It's got that scene, like, with the blood dropping in the dude's eye, like, early on. Like, it's got some really iconic stuff, and they did it it was a very cheap movie, and I think they shot them on handhelds, and like some of the new stuff that, like, the articles like, oh, they're shooting these on iPhones. Well, it's an iPhone, but it's like with a camera rig attached to it too, so it's not like they're just hand holding an iPhone filming this stuff. But like, I'm excited for this. Like, it'd be fun to revisit this world. I have heard, I think it's rumored, maybe it was announced, but like, it's nothing truly official yet. But there is a 28 years later part 2 that will be coming out after this. So it looks like they're hoping to tap into this a little bit more. But it is Alex Garland and Danny Boyle coming back, so hopefully we get a recapture that energy, that uniqueness of the first one, rather than the more actiony second one along the way. But check out that teaser footage. I thought it was really fun to dive into that. We're not big Potterheads here on the show, Mike. You can confirm that for me, for everybody?
Yes.
Confirm. Cool. But confirming, along that, Harry Potter's just a huge phenomenon. We both live with, our wives are Harry Potter fans through and through. It's permeated our youth. It's it's everywhere. Harry Potter it takes over. HBO is doing a series. They announced, I think, a couple years ago on Max, or maybe it's just HBO proper. I don't remember, but they confirmed that the show will begin shooting its first season next summer, 2025. Each season will be a book in the series, and one of the people making it said that we have 8 hours to tell the first book, likely confirming these are going to be 8 1-hour episodes for the show. I'm just interested culturally, more than content-wise, how going from a movie to a series, how A, that will translate, or B, what they're going to do with this, right? Like, I'm very interested in going the other direction. It would be similar to, like, again, taking Lord of the Rings and taking each movie and making a season out of the same material and seeing what they do with it. Lord of the Rings a little more, they made some concessions there. Harry Potter movies made concessions, but I'm interested in this, Mike, for that purpose more than anything.
Yeah. I mean, from a storytelling point, you have a greater chance of doing everything right because you have more time to work with to adapt something longer. I mean, it's the gripe as old as time of what's the difference between the book and the movie? Oh, the book has a lot more in it.
Yeah.
So at least with the TV show, you have a chance to include a little bit more. But also at the same time, like Harry Potter, the movie franchise is like iconic for just being really good at adapting a lot of books. No one else out there has done it quite like they have done it. Mm-hmm. So it's like, well, it's kind of like don't broke, don't fix it type of argument as well. But also we're on a cycle wheel of franchises where we're bound to double back on everything eventually. So my big question is not necessarily, how they'll adapt it or, if it'll be quality. My question is, does this last 8 years?
Yeah. That's
my big question of like, is this company going to be bought and sold again around season 4? Are they going to like realize, the juice is not worth the squeeze and we're spending so much money and we're not driving subscribers? When you look over at a place like Amazon and they're shelling out all of that money for Rings of Power, it's like, I get it. Like they can, sell a ton more like Amazon Echoes or, sell a bunch of toilet paper, and they can pay for an episode. Yeah. But the HBO model is different. They have to fund everything with subscribers. Mm-hmm. So that's my bigger question of, will this go the distance after all? I mean, if you had to bet on something going 8 years, a big franchise like Harry Potter seems like the way to go. But I wouldn't say it's a guarantee in my mind.
Oh, absolutely not. I think that's I would also say, looking at the history, they tried to branch off from Harry Potter, right? They did the Fantastic Beasts and Where to Find Them series, and they didn't even wrap that up. They did 3 and cut their losses, right? I don't think we're ever going to get that 4th one that wraps it up and puts a little bow on it. It's still left on like a little cliffhanger. So, there is no, guarantee. But I think this is one of those shows that, if HBO proper doesn't like it, and, or maybe they're contracted, like maybe someone else would buy it. Like if they're like, we did 4 seasons, we don't want to do 5, 6, and 7. I could see someone else, Netflix, Amazon, help, maybe even Disney, buying it up to wrap it up, right? Kind of thing. Like, hey, there is a audience for the Harry Potter Wizarding World community, like the game Hogwarts Legacy, one of the biggest video game releases of last year. I think there's still opportunities for people to do it, but is it from a subscriber count? I'd be interested because this will debut on Max, but it's HBO proper, kind of like Game of Thrones. So this is like, I guess maybe they're trying to hatch their next Game of Thrones property to tell across 7 years, if you will. So your concern's the same concern I had. I'm like, will it go the distance, Mike? As they say in Disney. So coming up here at the end of the show, we don't have, like I said, the news is kind of light this week. CCXP kind of let me down. But we're going to talk Creature Commandos, the first proper project from the DC Universe, written by James Gunn, released first 2 episodes this week on Max. I would say full spoiler alert. If you haven't watched it, you probably watch before you come back. But we'll try to not start with spoilers, I guess, along the way. But just, we might slip into them as we kind of move into it. I would also probably say first two episodes, not too spoilery, just to be transparent. It's not like there's a whole bunch of stuff here, but they did release a trailer showcasing some of the scenes from the first episode. I think it was the first episode, right? Maybe not. Maybe it was just like upcoming scenes. I don't remember seeing this in the show, Mike. Is this upcoming footage? Maybe. Can you confirm that for me?
Well, it's weird when I watched the both episodes of Creature Commandos today.
Yeah.
And usually what happens on HBO is they'll do like a 1 or 2 episode premiere, and then after the second episode, they'll show you a trailer of what's to come this season to hype you up, to keep you around for the next like 6-8 weeks or whatever.
Yeah.
But for some reason, they made a trailer for Creature Commandos like that of what's to come in the next weeks, but they played it after the first episode and not the second episode for me, at least personally, which was really confusing. But yeah, there's some crazy stuff it looks like coming up, but once you watch the first 2 episodes, you kind of get familiar at least with some of the settings and scenery, and you go, okay, I could see maybe this will be episode 3 or 4, and maybe this could be like 6 and 8 a little further down the line. But there is like a brief glimpse of a character showing the future, and we see like the David Cornsweet, is that his name?
Yeah,
Cornsworth, the next
Cornsweet.
Superman.
Yeah. James Gunn's Superman with the S and everything.
Yeah. He's like all crucified.
He's
on like a wasteland.
Yeah, he's on a cross, and then you get to see impaled versions of Mr. Terrific and Starfire. And I only put this in here because Mr. Terrific, we've seen set photos of. We know he's going to be Superman, but Starfire has not been announced yet to be in this universe. So it looks like, kind of leading into those Teen Titans rumors we've talked about over the past few months as well. Because I actually saw this after I watched it. Oh, there's a Peacemaker one. Obviously anything James Gunn touches, he's going to put in here because he is self-indulging. But you guys see Peacemaker laying on the ground like it was like blown off, and a bunch of other corpses as well. Yeah, it's the same. Everybody's spiked. So it looks like, it's just seen as like Cersei's. She's saying like, oh, the future, everyone's gonna die. Obviously, I don't think any of this is gonna come true, Mike. The DCU was probably not gonna kill all its heroes along the way, but it'll be interesting to see when that pops up in an episode, kind of along the way. And then also the other thing, when I watched this, I put this note in here. They confirmed that Creature Commandos is set 2 years after the Suicide Squad, not David Ayer's, James Gunn's The Suicide Squad, and those events are probably canon. So maybe this isn't the first DCU project along the way. Yeah. Anyway, we'll talk about the show.
These first 2 episodes directly reference James Gunn's The Suicide Squad and James Gunn's Peacemaker. So it is kind of weird that Superman is supposed to be like the first thing, but there's 3 other soft first things, which is pretty funny. But this will kind of give you maybe Nam flashbacks when you start off, because it's set up just like every other Suicide Squad movie.
Both of them.
It's like they're walking into a prison. Yeah, and so it's just like, I'm getting flashbacks here. Luckily, they make that go very, very quickly, and they're up in a helicopter within it feels like 5 minutes.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, because they do the thing where they we're here are the people that are who are incarcerated. The main characters. There's no one else in there that I can tell, even though that trailer kind of looks like there might be some other people around, like maybe Gorilla Grodd or somebody similar like that. But the Inhumans with these, not humans, these monsters with that. But they do this is the bride, and then it literally cuts after this, Mike, to the intro of the show where it does it again, where every intro tells you the character's name with the freeze frame beside them. So you get it twice twice in that episode, and I'm like, oh, you probably didn't need it in the episode if it's in your intro for everything.
And don't forget about the most important character that you see last in the opening credits.
Gorgo Bordello?
James Gunn himself.
Oh, yeah. Goddamn.
Animated and illustrated, typing on his computer as the credited writer and creator of the show, which felt a little self-congratulatory to me, but at least it kind of looked slick, so I don't know how to feel about it.
I agree that I hate it. I will be honest, I hate it because he's not, if he was typing on his computer and looking like he was busy, but he does the thing where he pushes 2 keys and leans back with his arms behind his head, he's smug, what I typed is just the best thing ever. And if your character, this design put off I'm doing work and not that I'm smug and think that this is the best thing ever, I would be okay with it. But, you know, that goes into what I'm going to say, Mike, is I don't like this show. I don't like it. I'm just going to be transparent. I did not have a good time. I was on my phone within like 15 minutes of this. I'm like, I'm bored. It sucks. Literally, I will tell you, every song, like there's like a song, I think 3 songs play in this. They're all by the band or artist Gorgo Bordello, right? Famously known from the early 2000s of the song Start Wearing Purple. But all 3 songs was because they're in some sort of made-up country named like Polkistan or something like that. It's weird.
Yeah, something like that.
And so it's playing the song, and they're like talking to each other, but they let the music play, and he's like, it's not just the music, he's singing over while they're talking. And I'm like, could you have not just got the instrumental like parts for when your characters are talking? Because I get it. You want to hear your music. You've done a quirky job. You picked a band nobody listens to on the regular. You know, the band is even animated in the second episode, Mike, where they're the bride and Frankenstein are brawling.
My guess was like, does Gunn know these people to put them in like directly? I don't know. I'm sure he could if he wanted to.
Yeah. Well, if he doesn't, he does now. He's like, you know what? You've everyone's heard your one song. We're gonna put 2 more songs so people know who you are. So it just felt over. This show felt overindulgent in James Gunn tendencies, including the introductions of the characters, the quirky music that plays over while people are talking, the very hyper-sexualized princess of this country who's trying to sleep with Rick Flag Sr. the whole time. It just grated on me. Like nothing felt, you know, good while I was watching it. I think maybe the second episode got a little better as it delved into the background of the bride character, right? The only character I guess we have some background on so far. But I was just like, man, I'm not having a good time with this show. I think it's one of those things where nobody told James Gunn to calm down and write something good. They just like, yeah, whatever you want to do, man, you're cool. And that's how I feel so far. 2 episodes in, just not having a good time. Mike, tell me how you feel. Probably a little different than me, but I mean,
it's kind of funny. This is the rare occurrence. This is the rare occurrence where we're kind of flipped on this. You're typically the optimist when it comes to the stuff we talk about on the show. But I will caveat while saying I watched this show while also watching my 5-month-old and also wrapping Christmas presents at the same time. So it may not have had 100% of my attention, but I watched it enough to feel like I could say I enjoyed it. This feels very in line with the kind of genre of adult action comic book animation that Invincible kind of has spearheaded recently. I get like similar vibes, similar maturity, similar slick animation when the action starts. I would say visually this show to me looks better than Invincible. When I'm watching that on Prime, sometimes I feel where the budget is being stretched on Invincible. I'm not saying it doesn't look good when it gets going and the story is great, but I felt like Creature Commandos looked really good to me personally.
Man,
so
that's surprising.
I enjoyed that.
I did. I actually think that was the other part I had was actually, it's funny you bring it up first because I think it's an ugly show. I think it feels lazy in animation and design. But continue. Sorry, that's interesting.
Yeah, I enjoyed it overall. I thought it was an interesting approach to kind of focus on the bride as kind of our jumping off point. At least it seems for the first 2 episodes, where her storyline seems to be the through line that is starting to get the story going and bringing in the drama. It seems like we're going to get into each character as the season goes along. But the bride seems pretty like a nice, strong place to start. I'll agree with you that the princess of this fake country she seems kind of like very one note, and I don't really understand why she's there except for maybe to get the intended audience for this show extra excited, if you know what I'm saying. But I kind of just overlooked that for the most part where... Yeah, I enjoyed it. It's not I don't think it's amazing. It's not perfect, but it didn't have to be. It just had to not be bad. But at least in my mind, that's how it worked. But the thing is like James Gunn gets to have his cake and eat it too, because this is the perfect type of content for his universe, where if nobody liked it and nobody watched it, he'll just wave it off like, oh, it was animated, it's no big deal, don't pay attention to it. But if it ends up being great, like, oh, look at this awesome adult animated thing, like, look at this variety of content that I'm bringing to HBO Max. So it's kind of a win-win either way it goes. But I thought it was fine. I'm more curious of the implications of, since this is in a universe. Well, now I can imagine when I'm watching the Superman movie, like, oh, technically Frankenstein is just out there on this planet somewhere on a yacht, which is kind of crazy to imagine. So at least it's kind of giving us details of what James Gunn's world is going to look like.
And that is my concern. If this is his first, I'm going to say the Suicide Squad and Peacemaker are James Gunn's DC. He's doing the first 4 items into Superman. If Superman's anywhere close to this, it'll be fucking trash, Mike. Like I don't want James Gunn's fingerprints on Superman after watching this, because I'm like, no one's telling him no. He wants to be quirky. He wants to be, different, have little one-liners and be R-rated and do the stuff he did at Troma in here. And I'm like, yeah, that's fine, but like, I'm worried about Superman if he's going to be doing it here. Who's going to stop him from doing it on a bigger property and a bigger project, right? Like, will it be? I agree. This can be bad and it's fine, but if Superman is anywhere near this, it's going to be not fun for anybody to watch, right, at the end of the day.
Well, we've agreed in the past about this with Gunn in general when we were reviewing Peacemaker, of like, when you give him too long of a leash, it just really feels like you're watching a James Gunn movie or TV show, and you're not really watching something that exists within the DC universe, which might make you sound hypocritical sometimes, because like, well, I really like it when these superhero movies come with a direction or a vision, or they feel like they have an energy, but sometimes it can be a little self-indulgent. Just look at anything recently Taika Waititi's done over at Marvel. So yeah, it's weird. It's like, I'm not rooting for producers and executives with leashes, but I can understand the angle that you're coming from. Yeah. But yeah, we got a couple more episodes left. What is this, 10 or 8 episodes?
I think it's 7. I actually think it's an odd number.
Oh yeah, that's right. Because I think we talked about like, oh, it's done when it's done, or that's where he found his script ending, and that's what he wanted to do. So
yeah.
Like, I guess do you think are you gonna watch more just out of sheer curiosity?
Yeah, no, I'll absolutely watch it. It is 7 episodes weekly through January. Like, I will watch it, but I just, I feel those complaints I had about Peacemaker coming out when I'm watching this. I'm like, oh, this is, it's their shock value to shock value. I don't need to see Victor Frankenstein sleeping with a very nude corpse, the bride, who's just essentially body parts, right? Like, they show full nudity in this, and I'm like, well, this is, they could have just done that off screen, or like referenced it rather than showing it. I'm like, they're just doing it because James Gunn, and that's what he wants to show. He wants to make it weird. He wants to make it, again, I'm going to use the word quirky, and something no one's ever done this before, so he can put it on his resume for later. And I'm just like, yeah, just tell me a good story. So hopefully it's good. I also, for being 2 episodes, the villain, we learn like right at the beginning, right? I think it's the intro, like Cersei is the villain of this, who is a Wonder Woman villain. We don't even see her. We see her at the first episode, then we see her literally at the end of the second episode. So I'm like, let's get to the, where the villain is here. What's the plot? What's the end goal for this team before we get them in there? So I want it. I want it to move, I guess, towards that direction a little bit. But looking up here, the next 3 titles, Mike, are Cheers to the Tin Man, which we're probably going to learn about G.I. Robot and his background next. Chasing Squirrels is number 4, which is going to probably be Weasel. And then the Iron Pot is number 5, which will probably be Dr. Phosphorus's background story. So it seems like we're going to be getting some backgrounds of these characters kind of along the way, more than them taking care of, what is it, the Sons of Themyscira, I think is the name of the hillbillies who are trying to get to the Woman Island. So I'll watch it. Yeah, I'm not like absolutely, like, I don't hate it enough to be like, I turn off, but like, I'm gonna be hate watching it while I get through this, if that makes sense. along the way. So, now on if you guys want to watch this on Max, it'll be coming out every, I guess, Thursday. That's the 12th is this coming Thursday, right? I gotta pull up my schedule, because I never know what day it is in December, Mike. The holidays run together, and it's dark at like 4:00. Yeah, the 12th is Thursday. So this week coming out Thursdays on Max. Kind of a long way. I'm also interested to see kind of more, as we saw with like that commercial. What is the DC universe that James Gunn is putting? What are those notes that he's putting in there? Like the little subtle notes, right? Like the Superman, the Mr. Terrific, the Peacemaker. What other things are actually happening in the world around him? So I will be watching for those little bits of notes as we get towards that. Anything else you want to add to this? You want to go download the Gogo Bordello
I'll keep watching
discography?
This is a great reminder to stay subscribed to the podcast and check in each week.
Yep.
And to see check our temperature on Creature Commandos.
Yeah. I will have Skeleton Crew all 3 episodes done by next week, so we can talk a little bit about that if we want to. But absolutely. So, but Mike, if people want to know what you're up to, what you're doing, where can they find you, buddy?
Yeah, they can read my webcomics at pickledcomics.com and liferewardsrisk.com. Chris, if people want to catch up with you, where are you? If they want to play Marvel Rivals with you, where can they find
absolutely. You can find me on Instagram, Valdan87, VALDAN, or video game system, the same name. Literally, I will be playing this on my Xbox, my PlayStation, and my Steam Deck, simply because they can't let you link accounts yet, and I played across all 3 during the alphas and betas, so I'm like, well, I got fun stuff along this, but I love to play on there with you guys if you guys want to try it out. People want to know more about the show, where we are, what we're doing every week, where they can subscribe, whatever they want to do. Where can they get all them goodies at?
Oh, all you got to do is head on over to superheroslate.com. Is the best place to find all the avenues we host our show. Got our awesome show notes. If you want to see the trailers that we were talking about this week on the show, you can find us on Apple Podcasts, YouTube, Spotify, wherever else you love to listen to fun podcasts like our own. We got merch at superheroslate.com/store. We love hearing from you. What did you think of Creature Commandos? Are you a little bit more of a Chris? Or are you a little bit more of a Mike on Creature Commandos? We'd love to hear your thoughts. And if you want to be a super fan of Superhero Slate, it's very easy. All you have to do is share the show with a friend, share the show with a buddy, and we'll be here every week, folks.
That's right, and we'll see you guys next week.
Bye.